Okay, can everybody hear me all right?
Yeah.
Yep.
Switched my headset, so I wasn't quite sure. Okay, is everybody here already using Microsoft, or do we have anybody that's excited about maybe doing it?
I'm currently using it.
Okay. So it'll make, hey, Jake. Okay, you have 365, but just not using SharePoint, or you don't have access to it, Matt? Not using, okay. So it's available, you just haven't been using it, okay. All right, let's see. Okay, so the idea behind this, I broke it up into a 3-part phone call so we don't block off and destroy an entire full day of everybody's calendar, because there is a little bit of planning and thought process that you guys will want to go through. So what we're going to do today is we're going to cover a few things, just make sure everybody's on the same page with what the different pieces are, and then so for that'll be the first little bit, and then the last half, what I would like to do is just open up the discussion about what you guys think you want in your intranet, so we can kind of get an idea of what each other's going to put in there, whether it's carrier information, process procedures, that kind of stuff. So, but I mean, this is an open discussion, so feel free to jump in at any point in time if you got a question or something's not making sense. Because this is the first time that I've done this one live. I've always recorded everything before when I've done classes and stuff. So we're all on different levels with using Microsoft or technology in general. So especially SharePoint, there's no dumb question. So feel free to post it in the chat or go ahead and just cut me off real quick. So the whole goal here is to build an intranet. The reason I started building an intranet was because I struggled with the fact that my staff couldn't figure out where all our documents were. We had all our processes and procedures built out inside of a Word document and just saved on the cloud drive, but for some reason they would never reference it. And so being able to search for different information really kind of improved the scenario where they could search for keywords just like you do on Google. The difference, one of the questions that popped up in the group quite a bit was what the difference between OneDrive and SharePoint is. Let me see if I can share this here.
And Travis,
Yeah.
I'm Jake. As you're building that out, or have you built out anything specifically with SharePoint? You know, any type of a template or model?
I have one that we've been building that we're using in our agency, and I'll show that so you guys can see what that looks like. As you guys get into this, we're all in different stages. So as you start actually documenting your processes and procedures, it's a never-ending thing because everything keeps changing. So it's a work in progress. Not everything's complete, nor I think it will ever be complete. But at least as we're getting it in there, we're finding that it's creating some additional questions on, oh, how do I do this? Or can we put that in here? So ideas are jumping up all the time. But I'll show you what we've built here in a little bit, so you can kind of see some of the format that we've used. But real quick, just because one of the questions that popped up in the group was, what's the difference between OneDrive and SharePoint? Because both of them come with the Microsoft Office system. So they're both cloud drives. It's stored up in the cloud. You can sync the files to your computer. But the OneDrive, if you think about it, it's a personal drive. And then if you think about the name SharePoint, it's shared. So that's the easiest way to remember what it is. But with OneDrive, the owner of that drive actually gets to control everything that's in that folder. So as an agency owner, I don't have access to my staff's OneDrive unless they share that information with me. That's their personal cloud. On the SharePoint side, we create that. It's an agency-wide organization cloud drive that's shared. And you can give and remove access to pieces of that with the groups, which I'll get into here in a second. But you can either give them access to the pages, or you can give them access to files, because SharePoint's a pretty broad. It's really evolved over the past several years. Microsoft Stream is another piece that we use in our agency. It's another piece that comes within the Microsoft platform, depending on what level you're on. But the Stream is the cloud video hosting, where you can store videos for internal use inside your organization. So I create video walkthroughs. I use Screencast-O-Matic to record walkthroughs going through whether it's the quoting process or policy change. The reason I like Screencast-O-Matic is because it puts a little circle around your mouse so your staff can see where you're moving your mouse and what you're clicking on. But then once I record the video, I upload it to Stream. And I'll show you when we get into that piece how you can upload. But those pieces, you store those files. You can create playlists just like you do on YouTube. And you can embed that stuff in your SharePoint site. So when you're in there, your staff's not just looking at text. They can also click on a video to get deeper information on how to do stuff.
Hey, Travis.
Yeah.
This is Kyle. I use a Screencast-O-Matic as well for videos I have saved. I haven't built out the SharePoint yet, but do we have to use Stream in order to get that video embedded in there? Is that kind of the only way to do it, or the best way?
It's the easiest way just because it's integrated so tightly, but you don't have to. Because YouTube, I mean, if you wanted to put it on YouTube, it does give you that embed code. But the one thing Microsoft's really doing is they're really tying everything together. And so it's really easy to click a button and say, I want this video.
So when you do the video on Screencast, it has an option to upload it right to the Stream from there now? Okay. Yeah. Perfect. Gotcha.
Yeah, it's pretty easy. Worst case scenario is open your web browser and just drag it over and drop it.
Okay.
And the other thing that I liked about Stream was it's now going through and pulling out the text. So you don't even have to have the sound on. It will transcribe your videos for you. So they could sit there and not bother everybody else in the office and actually read the text as well. Also, Stream any internal videos or meetings that we have. It records that, so you can share those later for further collaboration. When we do a review between staff, we do it inside of Microsoft Teams, which automatically records the video to Stream. So you'll see that everything's being integrated. As of right now, they don't have the external sharing piece, to answer Greg's question in the chat, turned on. I read that was something that was going to be coming in the future, to where you share those videos outside of your business. But as of right now, no, it's not. It's more of an internal use type of deal. We use Microsoft Teams just because I'm a big believer in using the same platform if you can, just because one of the frustrations I've had with all of the technology stuff in general is when you start getting too many pieces, it becomes unfamiliar. They get confused on where to go, what the information is. And while, Slack is a competitor, technically they're two totally different programs. They do have some of the same functionality, but since a lot of our information is inside of the Microsoft ecosystem, it's just a lot easier to control it all with security controls inside of Teams, because that just kind of keeps it all in. And I'll show you here, as we're building it out, I'll show you how we integrate it inside of Teams to give your staff easy access.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
Travis, did you hear anything about there being a phone solution too with Microsoft? We use Ring Central now, and as of recently, I know that Microsoft has built out a phone solution that's not Skype, or they're building out one, which would, of course, further centralize all their products.
They inside of Teams, they do have a phone solution that you can turn on. and it's integrated right inside there. I actually have, I'm testing it. I have one line where I can dial an actual phone line with my program. It doesn't have text messaging. You can build in call trees and that kind of stuff when somebody calls your location. It's not the easiest to set up right now, but I know they're heavily integrating new features into that because that's a big piece of where they're going in the future. They're really trying to make Teams the one application that you can do everything in, from what I see. And so the chat, you can chat, internal chat inside of Teams. We do virtual meetings, actually easy links. One of the calls that I had last week, they fired over a Microsoft Teams. They're pretty heavily built on the Microsoft platform. So they sent it over and we had our conference call right there inside of Teams. So it's pretty nice. The calendar's integrated in there, so you don't have to go look at Outlook to look at your calendar. You can see it right there. And then you can automatically record those meetings. Those meetings go to stream. So they're housed there for you. So you can go back and reference them if you want to turn them on. So it's really becoming a pretty useful tool in the fact that I can control it all through the security controls inside of Microsoft. If you do have a staff member leave, you can shut them off with a click of a couple buttons so they don't have access anymore. Depending on what platform you're on with Microsoft, you can wipe their phone and their computer with your agency's information. In today's world, that's a huge thing. I had a conversation with business owner 3 weeks ago. Luckily, it wasn't insurance, but I do know this happens in our industry too because we're not immune to it. But they had a secretary that got angry and went in and wiped out half of their information because they didn't have security controls in place, and so they lost who knows how many files because she just went in and hit delete on everything before she walked out the door. So there's some stuff that security-wise is really beneficial, not just in Teams, just across the whole platform. And I think with where our industry is going, the security is going to be a lot more of a big deal moving forward.
Hey, Travis.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, quick question. Can you talk about the phones and everything? I know you're using Zoom for the meeting. I'm kind of looking at Ring Central or Zoom for phones going to the phone system.
Mm-hmm.
Curious, I guess, you're using Zoom. Is there any way to do what you're doing now within the Office 365 suite as far as a meeting like this?
Yes.
What product is it? Which piece is it?
Well, inside of Teams,
Teams,
we can do this, and I can hold live meetings inside of Teams for everybody, but currently it doesn't integrate with Facebook, and so that's why I'm using the Teams. But Zoom does have a program inside of Teams to where I can also publish this inside of Teams. Ring Central, we use Ring Central currently for our phone system. Only because of the text messaging piece. As soon as I can get that somewhere else, I would integrate it inside of Teams because it goes back to the ease of use for your staff. It's one less application they need to have access to. So yeah, I'm just kind of sitting and waiting.
So the Zoom phone system, have you looked at that at all, or?
I haven't, just because I know eventually
Microsoft will have it.
Microsoft will have it all built in. Microsoft actually recently just shut off the entire phone system for their whole company worldwide, and they only use the phone system inside of Teams now. So when I turn in a support request with Microsoft, they'll pop into my Teams and just say, "Hey, you got a minute? I want to fix that for you." So their responsiveness has become huge with access to Teams. And anybody with a Skype email address or a Microsoft email address, most of the time you can ping them in there like you used to be able to with Skype.
Okay.
So it's breaking down barriers.
And also too, Kyle, Zoom was bought by Ring Central. So
seriously?
Yeah, Ring Central is, I use Ring Central too, and I love it for the meetings. I like Teams more now, but Zoom is now used by Ring Central. I use it all the time with my external customers. That seems to be useful.
You mean Ring Central uses that little? I know they use Zoom as their meeting thing. Is that what you mean?
Yeah, they're one and the same now.
Okay.
Yeah, they use that for the back end before they bought them for their meeting platform. So
yeah, I didn't realize they bought Ring Central. Huh.
Or it's Ring Central bought Zoom.
Zoom bought them, whatever. Okay.
Yeah, it works really well though. Whatever the two is.
Okay. Good to know. Thank you.
Yeah.
But going along the lines of the security piece of the Microsoft platform, one of the biggest things that helps you control, besides the security settings itself, is the Microsoft groups. Inside of Microsoft groups, you can create different security groups that automatically give your staff, depending on their level of access that you want them to have, you can create groups to give them or remove them from certain pieces of information inside your agency. So if you have a much larger agency and you only want a certain group of people to see the personal line side, you can create a personal lines group, and that would only give them access to anything that's within that security role. If you don't really care, then you can put everybody in the same group. Just know that they have access to everything. But there's some agencies that want an HR piece that only the HR staff or administration can get access to, and then your sales, marketing. You can break it up however you want, but the security groups is how you control who gets what access to which pieces of the platform, wherever you're storing that information. The groups can also be used as shared mailboxes. So we have a couple different shared mailboxes that we use. Our support email address that comes in as a shared email box that everybody that has that group access can see those emails and respond to those emails. So for a smaller agency, that's a really easy way to make you look bigger than you are, is by having a shared email box. You can also, if anybody remembers the old distribution list where you send the email and everybody gets blasted, you send it to one email address, but it goes to everybody. You can create that kind of stuff with groups as well, alongside of the shared mailbox. And you can also create the groups where they're public or private. And so if you want your staff to know about a project, you can make it a public group that they can join or see. Or if you want it to be like just a management piece and you don't need them even seeing that piece of it, you can create a private group that only the people in the group can see. So it's kind of like a public and private post.
Travis,
Facebook wall.
Travis, sorry to keep interrupting here, man.
No, you're good.
On the shared mailbox that we use here. So on the shared mailbox, we have different members that look at that mailbox. So we have hello@streetsmart.insurance and 5 different people look at it. The issue I have with that is that if someone reads that email and doesn't do anything with it, the other 4 members see that it's red. So it's like, who's on first?
Right.
Who did it? That's the only issue I had versus G Suites on a shared mailbox. If I read it, it still shows up as unread on your domain or your mail client, much rather.
The one thing, because I completely agree with that. The one thing that we did before we started using Dynamics to manage our shared mailbox was we turned on to where everybody had to physically click on the email and mark it as read. So that way they had to take that manual action of moving it to the red status. Otherwise, by default, if you click on it and you move to the next one, it marks it as red. So if you just go change the setting to not automatically change that status, then they have to physically click on it, mark it as red. And the other piece that we do in our office is if you click on it, let me look at my Outlook.
That's an excellent idea. That's an absolutely excellent idea.
And then
use categories for colors. That's what we do.
Categories was one thing that I was going to create a quick video on here in the next week or two. And then under the flag area, the follow-up, you can mark it as complete.
Stuff. Yeah, some travelers. They sent me some. This is about the only thing I like.
Hang on.
I don't know what the hell this is. It looks like a shawl. I don't know.
There we go. So you can right-click on the email and go to the flag follow-up section, and there is a mark complete option. So in our office, we mark it as red, so we know that, okay, we're touching it, and then they mark it as complete when they're done. So that way we can go back and see which ones aren't actually done. when you're using a shared mailbox. We actually just, a side nugget, we, for everybody in the same department, we push all of our voicemails into the same shared mailbox, and we just have it sort by a filter into each person's own bucket, so we can see who's responded and who hasn't responded. So if somebody happens to be out, we can attack those voicemails without getting into somebody's email specifically. So there's a couple different things you can do to help with that situation. Okay, so to get to the SharePoint piece of the whole thing, so you got several pieces of the bucket that we use to create the intranet. So as far as SharePoint goes itself, there's a couple different pieces to SharePoint. Microsoft forever has had what we call the classic SharePoint site. It was very technical to use. You pretty much had to hire somebody to go build it out. You could pretty much do anything you wanted with it, but it was very expensive to build out and create. So historically, we've only used the classic SharePoint. They call it the team site. We've only used it for document management. So we just created a shared SharePoint site where we had just the folder system, and it was just our cloud folder system. And we broke up the folders based on however you want to organize your information. But in the last 2 years, Microsoft's put an emphasis on the modern agency, modern office type of setup, and they came out with a new version of SharePoint that is called a communication site. So a communication site looks more like a web page. You can go in. Let me just log in. I'll share my screen. You can go in and actually build it out like you would any other website. Internet. Okay, can you see this screen now? So this is a communication site. So it's a lot more visual. It's a lot easier to work with, and this is what we're going to build the majority of our site with, is the communication site. We still use the document team site to store the actual files, because you can create folders for your carriers when they send you the PDFs on different stuff. Client files, if you want a central location to store client files, whether it's temporary or permanent backup, you can put those in the classic team site. But on the structure here for the SharePoint itself, this is what we use to build out this piece. So the communication site just allows you to start building your own web page of sorts on an intranet type of structure. This section here up top, this is called a hero. That's just a web design term. But what it is just bigger pictures. Each one of these is actually a link. So as we start growing, the Welcome to Beacon Point is really, more for new staff that's coming in. Talks about our story. You can put whatever you want in here. And this is the other nice thing with the communication site is it comes with different templates built in, and we'll show you how to use those templates as we get into building. But then I just broke it up, and this is where you need to start figuring out what information and how you want to present the information within your own agency. So some people do life and health, some people only do personal, so you can decide what kind of information you want in here. Over the years, we've done all the pieces, whether we're doing them actively now or not. We did, build these pieces out. So for personal insurance, for example, when I click on this, it just takes me into, so this is where you want to start figuring out what kind of structure you want. I just took it into a page where they could see, okay, what am I trying to do? Am I trying to attract clients? Okay, here's the rating and binding piece. Here's our onboarding information. When we're engaging them, we're servicing, claims process, review, retention. So we started breaking down the different sections. you know, and probably one of the easiest things to do is kind of ask your staff. You don't want to build it with your brain. You want to build it with how they're going to work for that. I mean, because they're not going to think like you and I are as far as how things should be. So you want to kind of mix the two to make sure that they can actually get in there and find the information they want. So, you know, figure out what kind of structure that you want to put inside your site. So life and health, see, I put it there, but I don't have actually anything built out in here yet, in the process of doing that. And with the communication site, they have different pieces to the communication site. In the past year or so, Microsoft's come out with what they call a hub site. So if you have a little bit bigger organization, or if you want to eventually have more information within your intranet, the hub site is the way to go. And the hub site just connects communication sites and team sites together and kind of puts them into the same type of format. And you can tell that this is a hub site because right up here up top, I have home right here. So it starts putting a navigation bar across the top. And so one of the extra pieces that I recently started doing was when I activated the hub site, I created this carrier resource section. So for us, it goes into like a blended version. So in here, I can click on the Documents tab, and this will access the traditional team site, because here's our folders for the different carriers where we can go into whoever and pick out whatever documents. Actually, I picked a bad one because it has no folders in there. Or we can pick a carrier site here. And so for Encompass, for example, I can create a site here where we start putting different information. What kind of information is your staff always looking for? What kind of questions do they? Yeah.
Hey, this is Aaron. So one thing I had trouble with SharePoint is like scanning documents and actually getting it into SharePoint. It's easy to get in OneDrive when you scan it, but how do you get it into SharePoint when you scan it?
Well, once you create the team site, let me back out here. Let me go to my other desktop. Okay, can you see my blank screen here? Once you install the OneDrive Sync program, then you can sync all of that information directly, whether it's OneDrive or SharePoint, to your actual desktop. And it'll show up right in your native folder system. So anything with this building icon here is my SharePoint sites. And then here's my OneDrive down here. And you can click and drag straight over, just like you would any kind of file naturally on your computer. But you can.
How did you do that?
This is with the OneDrive Sync. And let me show you real quick. Let me flip back over to. Well, let me drag this over here. Can you still see this?
Yep. Okay.
So when you're in SharePoint, you go into the document section. And right up top here, there's a sync button. And when you click that sync button, it will either download the OneDrive Sync program to your computer, or it will launch it. And it'll say, get ready to sync. And when you
can pick what you want to sync, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Okay.
So you can do the whole SharePoint site. You can do just folders if you want. And then it'll put the little cloud icon down here in your tray where you can see, and you can set it to automatically sync everything, or you can set it to just be the backup for you. And there's some settings, and we'll get deeper into how to use the different pieces as we go, but that's the easiest way to launch that is when you're in here, just click the little sync icon and it'll install it for you.
Hey, Travis, on that one sync icon down on the tray. Do you ever have issues with it kind of stop communicating sometimes?
I haven't outside. Well, there's a red X on this one here, and that's just because I'm not signed in.
Okay.
For this one, because I've got multiple entities. So this one's my insurance operation. This one's with Workastrate, since I've partnered with them on the Microsoft stuff to do this stuff.
Okay.
And then here's the personal OneDrive cloud. That I just have it maxed out. You can see it's full. So either I've set it to not sync, or I'm not even signed in. It has been the only 2 times that I've actually had the issues.
Okay. Okay.
But there are also settings in there that you could get into. When you go into account, you can unlink it to where it stops, or you could stop sync. There's a bunch of different things you can do in here that may or may not give you what you want.
I use App Rivers, who I go through for Office 360, and every once in a while mine will kind of do that, and I had to hop in, and I'm not sure what exactly they did, but it got it up and working again.
Yeah, I think App Rivers is just a reseller.
They are, correct, yeah. One question, too, I have, as you're using these terms.
Sure.
When you say team site, you're not talking about Microsoft Teams, you're talking about the classic old version of SharePoint, is that right or not?
Correct.
Okay.
The one thing that I hate about Microsoft is they love using the same term for everything.
Got it. Okay.
So here's Microsoft Teams, but then under SharePoint, they have Team Site. And the Team Site has been around forever.
So that's the classic one, is Team Site.
That's the classic one, yeah.
So we could actually use components of Modern and Team and then bridge it together with the hub, so it's all in one spot then.
Correct.
Got it.
And that's what I did with mine. And here's the intranet, and I created the hub site, which connected the two. And
this may be getting a little bit ahead of you, but by using, kind of bridging that old Team Site there, does that do away with using the meta tags and all that new stuff they're doing for document management?
No, because the nice thing about the hub site is once you connect it, they give you this fancy little search bar that searches across all of your connected sites.
Okay.
So when your staff comes in to try to find something, they can search here, and any of the sites that are connected to the hub, it will search all of them for the related information.
So you don't have to really create tags or anything. You just search for whatever.
Yeah.
By name.
You can. It will probably help out a little bit more.
Do you utilize that or not?
I haven't taken the time.
No. Okay.
Just because I haven't seen where it's actually the time spent on it.
Right. That's what I was wondering.
Was a good investment. Currently, it may be different in the future, but right now with the way the search has been working, my staff doesn't even know any difference on what's coming up.
And do you recommend building it completely native on here versus using outside company themes and all that type of stuff?
Using outside company themes to me has always made it more difficult. Just because you got to figure out what they did, and then if there's an upgrade, did it break it, that kind of stuff.
Got it.
So cost effectiveness, it was just easier for me to go in here and just use the native tools.
Okay.
And just get it done instead of waiting for outside stuff.
Right. And on that, when you clicked on personal insurance there, and you have the different list of different things on there, when you click on that process, will that then take you to a video, like a one page with a video and the Word documentation on it on how to do stuff?
So here's how we broke down our process for reference, and this is fantastic if you use VAs or if you have new people. Yeah. So this actually is just a table that I copied and pasted out of an Excel file. Okay. Over here, this is a link, so it would take them to our rater, to the web page. And then here's where we integrated the stream stuff.
Got it.
So here's all and I put them, they're not in order right now, but they can find through. And here's step one. And I broke it down into 1 to 2. I tried to keep it under just a handful of minutes, just so they could just get through just that section of it.
Sure. Okay.
And you could embed just like a single video here, but when I broke it down into steps, it was easier to do the playlist.
Okay.
Or they could click on stream.
And play all of them at once, or?
And they could go to the entire channel and see all the videos and go to the one that they wanted.
Okay.
Yeah, so this has been great because every time they ask me the question, I'm like, did you check the intranet first? And they're like, and then they don't come back with a question unless it's like something we need to consider, adjusting the whatever.
Okay.
The other beautiful piece that I love about the new hub site is anytime you update any of the pages in the hub, it has this news section down here, and it populates that page and says something's changed here. So every time we've been creating the carrier resource section, most recently, that's why these are all down here. But anytime we update, process procedure, that page would pop up in here. So if anybody comes here, they would see, oh, something's been updated for that section. You can use, you can create a different communication site for agency stuff. If you want to do like internal news or whatever, you can use the same feature for that kind of stuff as well. But it really aggregates that information here for you across the entire hub. And
what's
then,
an example of the progressive carrier resource? Like, what are you putting in there?
We started putting in just basically our contact information, because half the time, when you call, they're like, what's your code? We have so many companies, nobody remembers the code. So it's really easy. What's the email address where we can email the change request, where they'll process it for us? And then we were and this is what we're brainstorming right now, is like, what information is useful in here? One of the questions was, okay, well, which company, like, what's their best thing? Like, what are they more, what's their advantage? Okay. Safeco has agreed value on travel trailers, whatever. You can put that kind of stuff in there. So when you're searching for those keywords, it should pull up those pages. What products do they offer? There's different things. We're kind of going through what we should put on the carrier pages, which is what I hope our discussion will help us all kind of get some ideas here in a little bit.
Hey, Travis.
It was just something we were experimenting with so far. Yeah.
Do you have it broken down? This is where I struggle with too, is trying to figure out how to put what where, but by, say, lines of business, auto, home, umbrella, and then kind of like a searchable grid for, okay, which companies take a pool with a diving board, to be able to type in and see that stuff easy. Do you recommend breaking it down by, line of business, so they're not hunting in each company for that stuff, or what's the best solution for that?
That's the one thing that we've been trying to figure out, because you have to, really there's two issues there. One is, how often does that information change, and who's going to keep it updated? And then two, what's the best manner to put it in so people can find it? So I would think that would be more of a, let me see here.
Or almost like a personalized cheat sheet, kind of thing, an Excel file with the company code, yes and no.
I'll chip in on this because I used to be a carrier rep, so I've seen hundreds of agencies. The two ways that seem to work are, if you have somebody that's on staff that's responsible for once every 6 months or so updating every single carrier, with the exception of the ones that you're using every day, because when they update, everybody knows it and it gets done. So you have somebody on staff that's actually contacting the rep or contacting somebody and going through everything and making sure they're all correct. It's really time consuming, but it's also effective. The other way that they go about it is really they only try to keep up with the 2 or 3 carriers that they use the most frequently. And then the rest of them, it's just go ahead and call the underwriter, because we don't know if it changed in the last 6 weeks, the last 6 months, or the last, we haven't looked at this carrier for 2 years. Maybe let's give a call. So I'd say it's one or the other of those. Either just call every time, or have somebody that's really dedicated to make sure that stays updated, because the last thing you want to do is issue that policy and find out something's changed, right?
So when they do update info, are they putting it like on a grid or kind of one central database page where everybody can go to see that?
Yeah, so they're doing something similar to this, like some of them use SharePoint sites. So a lot of them use the old-fashioned team SharePoint site where it's linked to an Excel spreadsheet. Yeah. And then each of the columns is an underwriting data point. But to be perfectly honest, the more that I do this and the longer that I've done this, every carrier is getting more and more segmented and more complex in what they'll accept and what they won't. I'm not sure our old-fashioned checklists are going to do it unless we go to almost eventually an AI type thing. Maybe you can solve that, but yeah, it's just. Underwriters have gotten more important instead of less, interestingly.
And the other thing we struggle with here too is, every company out there has a telematics program that changes every 3 to 6 months. Try to remember how to explain that to each company with up-to-date information at one spot versus digging into each company.
Oh yeah.
Again, I don't know whether to put it on a grid for all the companies that are doing it, or update the individual company they're going to.
Well, something I'd like to discuss sometime, Travis, would be, and not today because I think we stay focused on what we're doing, but I'd love to hear how you're going between your management system and your SharePoint and your other Microsoft pieces, and how you're tying that management system into everything. So
okay.
For a discussion for later.
Sure.
Are you able to attach any emails?
I'll make a note of that.
Sorry, can I ask a real simple question here?
Sure.
The carrier resources section that you've built out, how does that tie back to that first home screen? Like, where is it residing?
It's a whole separate site. So right across the top up here, when I click home, it'll take us back to the primary page, because there's always going to be a primary starting point when they come in. And so across the top, as you add different sites to the hub, it will put a link to that site here in the navigation bar across the top.
So you've got so basically you're using intranet, this site is breaking it down by department and policies and procedures per department.
Right.
And then carrier resources, you've kind of said, well, that doesn't fit into these buckets because we may do personal and commercial lines. We may do lots of things with the carrier, right?
Yeah. So what happened when I started building, once they released this communication site format and I started building it out, you can also see I put a navigation bar here. It started getting overwhelmed with information and became disorganized because it wasn't focused. I was trying to put the whole agency underneath just this one site. And so that's, you can see here, I actually had company relationships. I was trying to build out their pages. So I stopped doing this and I went back and created a separate site just for the carrier resource piece. And so that's kind of the direction that I'm moving now that they've added this hub feature to it. It allows you to create and become more segmented in your information. So, you have an idea. If I go to the carrier resource section, it's all going to be carrier information. So that's kind of where my brain has been moving, because it's so hard once you start adding so much information in here. I don't know if e-junk is an actual term or not, but we create so much electronic information nowadays that if it's not kept up to date, it just becomes junk in the cloud and kind of consumes space. And so I was trying to find a way to where we could keep the information updated. And so that's where it came, with the hub sites. Did that answer the question?
Yeah, super, super helpful. I mean, that is I guess that's the answer. I was really struggling with this, like where to fit it all, but yeah.
Yeah. And so
the answer is it doesn't, basically.
Yeah. So I mean, because my whole goal today was just to kind of give everybody a background of the different pieces. And then we'll come back and next week we can actually start building, but I wanted to give you guys some time to say, okay, here's how we want to organize the information. Now that I get a basic idea on how the different pieces work together, and then we can come back and actually build next week and start putting the site together.
Yeah. Sorry, just one other question on this carrier resource section. I'm just thinking, let's just use travelers, for example. If you wanted to have a certain procedure done in quoting travelers, personal lines, I'm trying to find like a very simple thing to zero in on.
Sure.
That you want all your agents to use. Yeah. So, so you've actually segmented, once you went into carrier resources, now you also have segmented personal lines, commercial lines.
Yeah. And you can add as many of these sections in here as you want.
As opposed to on the prior site, the home site, do you mind just clicking in on that? On the commercial lines? I guess it makes sense that you would put the PL rater in for
general on the carrier site?
No, that you had done it in the other section.
Oh,
I'm just trying to figure out like where the information starts and stops, how you're segmenting it.
Yeah, so
I know it's a work in progress. There's no like obvious solution.
Yeah, so you can see I don't actually have any of our business processes punched in here yet.
It's harder, right?
Well, it's just getting the time to nail things down and document them is I think where all of the agencies struggle. It's not.
Yeah.
I've talked to probably 150 different agency owners over the past year and a half, 2 years, and it's the most common problem. It's like, well, we don't technically have anything written down, so it's just taking the time to actually do it. And then once you know kind of the structure of what you want to do, then you can come in here and put it together the way that you want to. So you kind of like I did here on the personal insurance, you could have a link to a specific piece because this whole piece is flexible. You can link to whatever you want.
You can link back to those carrier resources in theory. Like in personal lines, you can now hyperlink back to each carrier specific process.
Right, if you wanted to, yeah.
Okay, got it. All right, that's interesting.
Yep.
Cool. Thank you so much for putting this together.
But
Travis?
Yeah.
Hey, could you talk a little bit, does your agency use OneNote at all, and maybe where OneNote fits in within the whole Microsoft ecosystem?
Yeah, OneNote is a fascinating product. It's not structured on purpose, and I'm still trying to wrap my brain around it. I use it personally. I haven't used it for the agency yet, just because I don't completely, with it being so fluid, I don't know how to have my staff understand what I'm trying to do with it, because you can do so much stuff in there. But there is a OneNote that's created for every piece of the Microsoft ecosystem. So if you go into the folder section, or if you're in Teams, technically you can have a OneNote connect to any of these pieces, or you could drag in. Why do I still have AAA crap in here? See, e-junk. Where did the OneNote go? Yeah, so we just haven't used it as far as agency-wide stuff. But they did just bring back the OneNote piece, because for a while they were trying to move it to so I just started using it for just documentation stuff, for my own personal notes. And then it's so flexible that you can type, you can scribble, you can attach documents. Inside of Teams, you can connect. So here's our team channels. And you can connect OneNote inside of here and keep stuff. It's just we haven't found a usage for it agency-wide yet for the OneNote. I use it on my phone, but it's just me personally. A save template would be a good idea. I just haven't set it up yet. Greg posted in chat that he uses it for quite a bit of stuff.
Groceries.
Groceries. It is fantastic for groceries.
Hey, Travis.
Yeah.
You mentioned that Workestrate.
Mm-hmm.
So you're doing some stuff with it. So is that you working with them? I just kind of pulled up their website to see what they're all about. And as the insurance agency is one of their industries. What is that exactly? What are you doing with that differently, or how does that work?
So about a year ago, I got irritated at the industry with not having software that was usable. And so we started developing our own application inside of Microsoft Dynamics.
Okay.
Just because of how everything's tied together. So we've been building our own system that allows us to track all support tasks that are requested from clients or the companies. I can track how long it takes for each request to get taken care of. I can see how many tasks my staff are processing within a day. I can see how long it's taking them to process each type of task. And so Marco from that's his company. He's the Microsoft certified partner.
Okay.
He was the one that I connected with to build that. And since then, I've developed such a good relationship with him that we're working on building that to where we can provide that to other agencies that need workflow management and employee accountability. And with him being a partner, he's allowed me to do this stuff with him. I'm going to get him involved in some of these calls in the future.
So that's more of a Dynamics versus SharePoint?
No, it's all things Microsoft 365. Yeah.
Okay.
Because it's anything under the Microsoft 365 umbrella. So because over the past year and a half, I expressed how irritated I was with how backwards the industry was with technology. And, so he's like, well, everybody's already using half of these tools. They just don't know how to use them properly to enhance their agency's workflow. Dynamics is just a piece that can be added on later, but there's so much stuff just with the basic stuff that can be done like with SharePoint to enhance your operations that I talked him into doing this. So if anybody's willing to transfer their license over to him, doesn't cost anything extra. We're just taking the commissions that he gets from the sale of the product to help develop more content and resources like this for everybody, along with bringing everybody together to kind of create new ideas and that kind of stuff. This just happened to be the most in-demand question that everybody had was on the intranet and SharePoint. So naturally, we just started here since that's what everybody wanted to begin with. But that's our goal, is to create more stuff.
Travis, I'm sure like you and like the other members on this call, we get a whole heck of a lot of questions each and every day on how to do something or how something should be implemented. Do you think maybe this is my thoughts, but setting up like an internal ticket system or a suggestion part of the intranet within SharePoint? So like, hey, which carrier writes, rabbit pit bulls with a trampoline? That could be set up almost as like a ticket in itself, and then having it answered would then push the information to, I guess, whatever carrier of the choosings that would entertain that risk. Do you think a ticket system would work? My thoughts are any type of question that needs to be asked should be documented. Every question.
That's I'm not sure how to actually do that inside of SharePoint, but that's what we've done in Dynamics. Is it's created a ticket system for every request or every question that we've gotten.
Gotcha.
So yeah, that is a useful thing, because if you don't track it, there's no way to make sure you're going to get it back or it's going to be used correctly. As we all know with staff, if you're not tracking what they're doing, then they're not doing it. So yeah, if you have a simpler ticket system, you could do that and use that to push it out. We're using Dynamics to track that information for us personally.
I'll have to learn more about Dynamics then. I don't know a heck of a lot about it.
Well, I don't want to cannibalize this call with that, but I'm more than happy to jump on a call with anybody so I can show you what we're doing with it.
And Travis, do you have any of this tying into a management system, or is that all just kind of separate, housing the downloads, basically product or
right now, well, the intranet stuff we have inside of our Microsoft Teams. So
yeah, I'm saying your insurance management system like EasyLinks or Vertipore. Does any of this stuff tie into that, or is it all kind of separate, keeping it out of there?
Well, for this stuff, they don't let us connect that stuff, but I'm currently in contact with EasyLinks to connect our Dynamics application to them.
Okay.
And then, because eventually, long term, I would like to be able to track and do gap analysis and more risk management type of analysis that we just don't have access to do that kind of stuff today. So that's why, you know, we've struggled in the past with multiple programs.
All right.
And we just settled in that, you know, Microsoft was the one ecosystem out there that took care of the 80-20 rule. You know,
so Dynamics will take care of replacing like Infusionsoft and all that stuff.
Right.
On the marketing side, yeah.
Right, because and we're using the enterprise level version of it, so it's the most flexible thing on the market.
Okay.
And it's connected.
Hey Travis, I have a quick question for you.
Sure.
On your intranet site, do you have instructions that show how to create those drop-down menus? Because I've played around with this thing for a year and I just got fed up and let it go. And I have it set up just like this, not as dynamic as yours looks, but I can't create those drop-downs like the personal insurance and all that. You have instructions you can share on how to do that? Because I haven't had.
Yeah, that's actually what we'll be doing next Tuesday, live on the call.
Okay.
And we'll record all that stuff. I'll walk everybody through how to actually create a site and put the different pieces together and then connect it all.
Cool. Thanks.
And then part 3, we'll just come back and kind of circle up with answering questions and helping people, you know, if there's, you know, challenges getting it launched, and then showing you how to integrate it and share it with your team. So yeah, we'll do it next week. So I mean, basically this is what I wanted to cover today, but I wanted to, you know, kind of have a conversation like, what information do you want included on yours? How do you want to organize that information? As you can see how I've done it, but that doesn't mean it's the perfect way. You know, and I'm open. The piece I love about this is I learn just as much from you guys as you're learning from me. So, you know, what is there a different way that you think it should be organized? You know, totally open to suggestions. And then who do you want to have access? Do you want to segment it, or do you just want it wide open to everybody in your agency?
So are you able to segment parts? I'm just asking ahead.
Yeah, so with the office group, if you had, like, I have the carrier resource section here, but if I had a different hub site for human resources, I could create a Microsoft security group that would only give people in that group access to that section.
Okay.
So if you weren't a part of that office group, you wouldn't be able to click and go to that human resource hub site, for example.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, some people, you know, if you have just, if you have a personalized department that you don't want messing around with the commercial side, you could create a security group that only gives them access to the home part and the personalized side, for example. So it's really more or less deciding who you want access to what, and then we can structure it so you can secure the data that you need.
How about I mean, if you search a word like homeowners or auto insurance, does that also search within the document or PDF, or I guess a Word doc itself, or an Excel file? Or is it just the word, like, you know what I mean? Like if there's content on the document itself that says, you know, what does a homeowner's insurance policy look like? Something, whatever it may be. Is it like searching the content within the actual, like, see there it says new client life quote letter. Is the word homeowners being searched within that document? Because if so, then really you could just use the site search as almost like a Google.
It did. So there's homeowners right there.
Oh, okay. I think it's loading on my screen here. That is all. Then pretty much keep it as simple as possible.
Right.
Just make it search here. What is your question? What do you just make it almost like a hashtag, like auto insurance or home insurance, and
right.
then anything
you even
that's
add tags to it.
There you go. Now everything relevant to that topic would then pop up.
Right.
There you go. Bingo. That's cool. That's really good to know.
Could you add tags to it?
Yeah, there's pieces you can add different pieces of information to the different documents to help with that. It's just whether you want to take the time to do that or not.
I thought of the tags thing too, man. I did think of that over, obviously how interesting I am on the weekend. I think you would waste so much time doing that. It's easier just to search it by the word and then just kind of going from there.
Yeah. Yeah. For us, I didn't think it was worth taking the time to do it for that reason.
I guess another thing, if you can't search it by the word or, can't find it, would there be a spot maybe to put like an FAQ, kind of the 80-20 rule again, the 80% of the questions that your service staff gets for personal lines, kind of, what to do with it. Do they need to rent a car if they have a claim? That just simple stuff that you get most time. Would that be something to add? I know you got the kind
That's
of
what I did.
procedures there, but also have just a FAQ. The call,
just
most
a
common
running.
calls you're going to get. Yeah.
Yeah. And the other thing that can be done is you can create a separate communication site. And the FAQ could be each page, and we just create a template for that page. That way, when you search for that one question, only that one page comes up, so you don't have to like scroll through a mile-long document. So you just have an FAQ with the site itself.
You know what? I'm sorry to bump in again. You know what? Maybe you can actually search the FAQ itself, like a common question that comes up, like how to quote progressive. I don't know if that would actually come up as something within the FAQ that would open it up. So that's interesting too, to search old tickets based off the question.
In the FAQ article, you could link to whatever documents you wanted to.
True.
So if you search for that article, then at least the article would like push you where you need to go. Yeah, that's a good
concept.
idea.
Did you build all this out yourself, Travis, or did you get any custom work with this?
Nope. This is all native Microsoft stuff that I built myself.
Nice, dude.
Through multiple trial and error. I don't know if you remember seeing my SharePoint file site. There's like 42 of them in there because I kept building a new one because it wasn't working right. Next thing I know, I've got way too many SharePoint sites. It can get out of control if you're not going in with a organized plan.
I see.
So that's why I wanted to have this conversation first, so we can start forming some ideas, and then we can come back and next week actually putting some stuff together.
Travis, one other question with your documents there too.
Yeah.
I like what you're doing on the carrier spot, between each company there. But when you company updates a document, you drag it in, do you have to remember to manually take that out, or is there kind of a replace or swap kind of button when you're adding the updated version?
Okay, so on the carrier section, I guess I could have jumped into any of those.
Yeah, any company.
Well, any of them, I do link back to the actual document piece. So if it's a PDF.
Yeah, so I guess I'm saying if you're in the, say, Aetna, for example, you can drop that one down. Yeah.
Oh, of course it's. Let's see.
Okay, so let's say that dwelling application there from March or May of 2012 is updated.
Right.
What's the process to get that in there without junking it up, having the old version still in there?
Well, if you sync the folder to your desktop, then inside your folder, you can go in and you can see the same information. So you just drag the thing over there, and if you see the same document
just delete it
with the older version, just delete it. Now, by syncing it to your computer, the one thing I do have to say is if somebody does go in and, on your SharePoint site, you have to make sure they understand that if they delete something, it'll sync. If they have the settings set up, it will also sync that to your SharePoint site online too. So I actually create a backup from time to time.
Got it. Okay.
Just to make sure, because everybody has, if you give everybody read and write access, it will sync it across
the board. Gotcha.
Across the board.
Okay. Okay.
So I a couple times a year, I'll just take and copy it over to a private drive just so I have a backup.
And can you have subfolders within each company like that? Okay.
Yeah, you just click new and new folder.
Got it.
Or you can create any document you want right here.
Okay. And you can't drag and drop anything in there. You got to go through the sync folder on the desktop.
Uploading. Looks like you can go up, but not down. But it'll sync it back down to my computer.
Once it's in there, okay.
Once it's in there.
Got it, okay.
And Travis, can you show what it's like to share a file out of that? Like, so if you wanted to take that and send it as an email attachment, what would be the easiest way to do that?
So you can just hit the share button here. In the security roles, you can decide who you give access to. And then you just click Outlook. And it'll open up your Outlook with that as an attachment. And it gives them a link. And this is the other security piece that I love, is it gives them a link to the file itself instead of attaching it. So you remain in control of your document. So if you're sending sensitive information, you know, if you went back to, if you wanted to share it, you can remove the editing provisions. I actually have it blocked to where we can't share our SharePoint stuff outside the organization, but you can put it in here if I didn't have this blocked, where you can have that link self-destruct after a set period of time. So you can only give them access to that file for 1 day or 1 month or whatever you want. You can determine how long they have access to it too. So that way you can eventually shut off to where, you know, if it's no longer relevant, don't give them access to it anymore.
Is there a way to actually share the document itself, or is it just going to be a link to the document?
You can just attach the document like you would any other time if you wanted to go that route.
But do you have to download it like to your local desktop first and then basically drag and drop it into Outlook?
No, inside Outlook, you can do attach. And you can either attach the link or attach the file. So you can get your SharePoint sites right here out of Outlook. Or if you have a sync to your computer, you can just go straight to it. Right. Attach it like you would any other document. So it's really flexible. It's good and bad at the same time.
All of your client files, are those residing exclusively in the agency management system, or they're residing in a different shared system?
We are currently putting them in our Dynamics program, just so because we attach everything that's related to the same ticket itself. But we do have a backup SharePoint site for client files.
Would you mind showing us that real quick just to see what the Dynamics site looks like, if that's okay?
But in theory, that would also reside in this bar where it says home carrier resources, et cetera, would be like internal files as well?
Well, as far as like Dynamics goes, it syncs to the Dynamics application. So it's still housed on SharePoint, but it's encrypted inside of Dynamics.
Got it.
But anything that you put in SharePoint's just a traditional file.
Okay.
Let me do this. There, I'll pull up Dynamics so you can see that real quick. But any other questions on the SharePoint structure or features while I'm pulling that up?
So we'll be able to access all this back through Teams, though, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the files in
here's our teams right here.
Yep.
And we attach the intranet right here. So it's in our general tab, so everybody has access to it, and they can. Here's the carrier resources. You can jump to that if you wanted to.
How do you have your teams organized, out of curiosity? I know this isn't SharePoint, but it kind of has to do with that.
Yeah, and so what we found is simpler is more effective. So this is how we're currently using it. We still have our one-on-one chats right here, but inside of the teams, this is how we break it up. And so if it has to do with the prospect, the conversation happens in here. Clients, if it's a claim, support is support tickets that come in. So every time somebody submits a support ticket on our website, it goes to our Dynamics ticketing system, which we're calling Power Agent, where we can track it, and then it posts in here. Just let us know that it was done. And then I just have an internal project, so every time I send something to my VAs, I just throw it in there so they can see it. And then we do all our chats here. Across the top, here's any files that we share. You see it connects, it saves it all onto SharePoint, but right here is where it throws it to. You can click the link to go straight to it. I tried using the wiki in here. I didn't really like that a whole lot. So this is actually our Power Agent program built on Dynamics. So these are all ticket systems. So we're tracking everything that comes through the office. And each person that logs in, because everybody's in their own tenant, for lack of a better term, it pulls up their list. So I'm in Medicare season right now, so I'm just overloaded with waiting on people to decide on what they're going to do. But here's all my current.
And this is just yours,
right?
Or this is everyone's?
No, this is just mine.
Okay.
So I could go to all contacts, and this will pull up all of our contacts. Claims, we're starting to track claims inside of our own program. So now I can start running, reports, see how well we're doing on different types of claims, who's driving our claims. Let's see. So we can start drilling down as we get more information in here. At-fault accidents, what kind of claims are we having?
So is this a different program you're using inside of Teams?
This is Dynamics here. This is our custom.
Oh, okay.
This is our custom application inside of Dynamics. So here's what it looks like if you just go straight to it through the web. So we can come in and see. You can basically drill down. There's no more actual reports anymore. Everything's a dashboard, and you just drill into it. So if I wanted to see like what was in here, I could click into it. And now this was that single bar chart, because it just drops it. If I wanted to go back, I can remove the filters. So everything's real time.
How do you find this kind of conflicts with EasyLinks though? Because I use EasyLinks a lot too, and I'm doing all their EasyLinks Connects and Zapier, and I know they're doing a lot of the drill down with their reports too. Do you think this is like kind of skewing the numbers in a sense, since this isn't based, like you have agency activity and agency task? Is that kind of skewed in a sense?
Well, they're using Microsoft Power BI on their new reporting platform, and which is all of that information pulls from here anywhere. The difference is I've always struggled with the task management inside of EasyLinks. There's no way to track as far as workload goes for each staff member, or do process improvement. Where's it coming from? What type of request is it? how long has it taken them for the this is just our sample database here, not started. So we're timing how long it takes for the staff members to start it. Once it goes into in progress, we're tracking how long they're actually working on that specific task. So we're tracking different things in here than what is being tracked inside of EasyLinks. So there's not a whole lot of conflict.
I see.
What I'm trying to work with them right now to do is to pull over policy data.
Oh, that'd be great.
And once I pull that over, then I'll be able to run, if we can get, we can do it to where it's just the basic active policy stuff because it's a Excel file because it's Microsoft. So we just import from Excel. But on the policy side, we'll be able to do, once we get coverage data in here, we can do gap analysis with the click of a button. I can get rid of a handful of these things here because we won't need to do downloads, but we'll be able to start pulling out information based on claims or rate adjustments and tell the carriers like, hey, you guys are the ones causing these instead of us because you mispriced your $500 deductible, for example. If you would just increase the cost of the $500 deductible, some more people would take the $1,000 deductible. We would get rid of 30% of our claims because you're underpricing your product. And then when it comes back to employee accountability, we can go in and track activities for each employee, how many phone calls, how many presentations. And this is the part that I love the best. We call it a status meeting. When we create a status meeting, it will pull up all of the job tickets that are on hold. We don't have any on hold. That's why I didn't pull any up. Because as a business owner, my only care is how much stuff is not moving. If it's moving, I'm good with it. But if it's not moving, then that means there's an error in the process. So what's causing us to bottleneck? What's causing us not to move forward? And so I can pull in and have a conversation with each one of my staff members that just says, hey, what do we got going on? Where are we at with these? Why are we not moving? So our accountability for the employees, because they know we're going to have a conversation with them, they're going to stay on top of the tickets that they're responsible for. But going back to our conversation earlier about the shared mailbox, we pull it in through the queue here. This is our demo, but here's our support. And so all emails come in here, and so they have to be touched and connected to an account or support request of some sort.
So you're also using this as your CRM for new business lead sources?
Yes.
Is it automating email tracking, automated email series from contacts from the website and SMS messaging and, all that kind of lead nurturing?
It's not marketing automation like Infusionsoft, for example. Okay. So it will tell me when they click on a link, but it won't trigger another action currently because that's a whole separate piece to it. But what it does is it helps me track like what stages they're in and that kind of stuff currently. I just haven't gotten to the point where we've built out that aspect of it.
Gotcha. I mean, that's something that I'd really like. I'm a one-person small shop, so for me, the automation is both really key and cost containment's also a serious issue as a bootstrapped startup.
Right.
So for me, I've got the management system running on one end. Most honestly, the biggest reason that I have the management system operating is because I do enough ENS to make that a necessary evil with the accounting and so on. And then I've got a haphazard group of things for the sales automation, but I really need to pull that into a CRM or something that's going to tie that in. And then this is great from sort of the agency management side, documentation wise and keep track of it. And then the Dynamics 365, as I get back into employees, I used to manage a large agency. I can see how important that's going to be, but tying all three of those together seems to be the trick.
Right. And there's different things that we, so and this is the sales side. So right now, I'm not as worried about did they click on the link and respond type of marketing automation. I just want to know, are we continually following up and making that phone call when we need to?
Right.
Yeah, it would be helpful to know if they're more active with it, but at the end of the day, my people just need to know, who am I supposed to call and when should I call them? So that's what we're currently working on. The rest of it will come down the road. But on the service side, every email automatically gets pulled in to the account level. So if we have, I grabbed the wrong one, but if we actually have a email address in here, any email received from that will automatically get connected to the file.
So are you building these out manually, or do you use Zapier or something to automatically create the client for you? Because you're building it out in your management system too, right?
Well, and that's why we're trying to connect with EasyLinks, because then we can just have it automatically push it one way or the other.
Got it.
And I didn't mean for this to get into a dynamic show fest, but it's really easy to create contacts inside of Outlook.
Yeah, not a big deal.
Right here is an add-in, and I just click this button, and it adds this person to Dynamics. Add as a contact or a lead.
Good old SEMrush.
Yeah.
Anton.
Yeah.
Sends me emails all the time.
Yeah, he won't leave me alone.
Hey, I got to hop off because I have to go actually run down a prospect. But thank you so much for putting this together.
Yeah, we'll jump back on same time next week for another hour for whoever wants to join, and we'll actually get in and click some buttons and start putting some stuff together.
Yeah,
sounds fantastic. Yeah, I'm gonna bow out. Have a great day, guys.
Sure.
And gals.
All right.
See you.
And if anybody else has any,
so back on your teams, when you have that
Yep.
ABCD, are you notifying everybody in your organization, or do you have that bracketed? I mean, so if I get an email from auto owners that alerted me that there's a claim, is that just, did you create a rule and it's getting dumped into here from your Outlook? Is a rule taking that email about a claim and dumping it into your C column?
you can do that. Each one of these teams actually has an email address.
Mm-hmm.
And so you can click here and get email address. And so you can create a rule inside of Outlook to automatically forward any email from claims email address or has claims in the subject line to this. You can just turn around and forward it straight to this channel if you want.
Did not know that.
Okay. I didn't know that either.
And you can have they just rolled out to where you can have private channels. So if you have just one staff member that handles one piece of it, for example, you can do a private channel on that team to where they're the only ones that see it and the rest of the team doesn't get notified. But in general, anybody on the team would have access to this information.
Because I tried to use Planner where I could set up almost like buckets to make changes and then have it, so I could take the email, put it in there, but I just, maybe it was that get email thing I'm missing. So
yeah, if you click over here on the side, you can get the email address, and it's got to come from within so you won't be able to send an email to my email address here. Otherwise, if you would have, I wouldn't have shown it because this is live on the web or in the group.
But when I get, but I can forward the email to that.
It's got to come from your domain name for it to forward it to that message.
Ooh, nice.
So is this what you use for your Ring Central messages too?
Well, we just have it going into a shared box inside of our Dynamics application, so I can track it better. But I do have where it posts a message that said we missed a phone call when that happens, just so people know inside of Teams that, yeah.
God, I know we're getting in the weeds, but do you mind showing that?
Well, and here, this is every time somebody fills out a form on our website. It just posts this message here that just says so-and-so posted a support request.
Okay. So it's just a matter of connecting the mailbox.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm going to head off too, guys. It was nice chatting with all you guys. I really appreciate the ideas. I'm going to implement myself.
Cool. We'll be back on same time next week for anybody who wants to plug and play.
I'll be here.
Sounds good.
Thank you all.
Yep.
Thanks, Travis.
All right, thanks.
You guys have a great day.
You too.